Hello, BookTube. This is Weekly Reads. Sorry for the lack of videos the last few days. On Tuesday, I went to vote, and when I got back, I was a bit sweaty. It was 80 degrees, and I walked to the polling location because it's within walking distance. On Wednesday, I was planning on making a number of videos, but I wasn't in the best frame of mind, and when I sat down to make videos, I was visibly upset. So I decided to scrap making videos on Wednesday, and on Thursday, the video that I wanted to make just didn't quite work out. So I decided to scrap making videos on Thursday as well. And I'd hoped I would be making this weekly reads later in the evening. Normally, if everything goes according to plan, I usually try to film my weekly reads videos at 6:30 Central Time here in the United States. If I make an earlier video, normally I film around 12:30 Central Time. Means that either it's the beginning of the month and I'm sort of doing a reading project the following weekly reads or reading week, or things didn't quite go as I had anticipated, and that's what's happening this week is things have not gone as I had hoped at all. I basically went through my entire March TBR in 1 week, and that's impossible unless there's a lot of bills, and that's what happened. So my plan for March was to bookend the month with 2 mammoth works of history. The New Roman Empire by Anthony Kaldellis and The Soviet Century by Karl Scholgel, translated by Rodney Livingstone, I believe. Yes, Rodney Livingstone. So I started the New Roman Empire March 1st and built on it March 2nd. So the New Roman Empire is a history of the period of Roman history that in the West is called Byzantine, so the Byzantine Empire. Now, this designation is under critique because the people of the empire did not think of themselves as Byzantine. They thought of themselves as Romans. And in fact, it took probably 20 or 30 years after Greek independence from the Ottoman Empire for the people of Greece to think of themselves as Greek rather than Roman. So, but there were a lot of political, cultural issues that necessitated considering the Eastern Roman Empire or the Christian Roman Empire as the Byzantine Empire rather than just the Roman Empire. And so that's kind of takes up the introduction, which I didn't particularly care for. Lately, introductions in me are not getting on. Many cases, those introductions are fatal for the rest of the book. So then the first part of the book is about how the Roman Empire in the late 3rd century and early 4th century changed compared to what the Roman Empire was like before. How Roman identity became more widespread, how sort of the government became more centralized, larger. The earlier Roman Empire was very much an empire on a shoestring. This empire was much more bureaucratic and also, obviously, Christian. And then the subsequent parts basically do a more narrative history. Although I bailed out around Constantine. It just, I don't know if it's just tonal or what. I just did not enjoy what I read of the book. And I wasn't going to force myself to read it when I'm not enjoying it, because I'm under no obligations to really read any book I don't want to. So I'm setting it aside. I might come back to it, although given how other aspects of my reading week went, I'm definitely wondering if I'm in the process of a taste change. And I'll talk about that in another video, maybe on Monday. But anyway, so then on Thursday, I decided to get a start on the Soviet century. And then if things worked out, which they didn't, I would continue on until I finished. So the Soviet century is the history of the Soviet Union in an unconventional way. The first chapter looks at what we consider flea markets. The second chapter looks at local history museums. And I did not get on with this book at all. It's just tonally, it bugged me to no end. Although I think also the fact that I'm not particularly interested in Soviet history may have a role in this as well. I don't know. So this one got put aside as well. Well, let's go put them back over here. Which, yeah, that's another video as well. So that basically took out the main pillars of my March TBR. Now, fortunately, my weekend reading was saved by, so in between the two mammoth works of history, my plan was to read some forthcoming volumes of manga and maybe 2 works of Agatha Christie. Since I ended up bailing on the New Roman Empire, I decided on Sunday to read the first of the Agatha Christie novels that I'd wanted to read, Death on the Nile. So, Death on the Nile is one of my favorite Poirot novels. Unfortunately, that does not necessarily mean that if I'm not particularly getting on with Agatha Christie, that I'm going to actually love reading the novel, which is what happened. So, Death on the Nile is one of those novels where Poirot is on vacation. And unfortunately for him, that does not necessarily mean that he's going to escape having to investigate a murder. I don't think the man ever actually got a vacation. But anyway, so in this case, Lynette Doyle has it all. She's incredibly wealthy, incredibly beautiful, and she's just a force of nature. One day, her school friend Jacqueline comes to ask a favor. She's engaged to be married, and her fiance Simon Doyle is out of a job and needs work. So Lynette hires him on as her land agent, and Lynette takes a shine to Simon and marries him. Jacqueline does not take this very well and takes to stalking them over the course of their honeymoon, which culminates in a boat journey down the Nile that sees Lynette murdered, as well as several witnesses to the murder. Accompanying Poirot, our murder victim, and that love triangle are a number of other possible suspects, from jewel thieves, a kleptomaniac, a terrorist, and several other people who have things to hide, who may or may not have wanted Lynette dead. So when Agatha Christie works, there's just this delight in reading her. But when it doesn't work, it's a slog. And I did not enjoy this reading experience at all. What I read of it, I ended up having to drop it because my mom wanted to go over to see my brother and sister-in-law and the grandkids, and then we ended up having to watch them for the kids for an hour and a half. Yeah, anyway, I don't really want to go into that rant. So, yeah, I ended up not finishing it. And, I mean, it is one of those things where another video I want to make is to really interrogate that tendency of mine, that there are points where I really enjoy Agatha Christie's work. And then there are points where even the books that I know I love, I don't love them, and like there are moments where I don't know how to explain it, but needless to say, me and Agatha Christie are still not getting along. Now, what saved my reading weekend were 2 slim volumes of poetry. Blood Weather by Alice Friman. This is a more recent collection compared to her earlier View from Saturn, and I quite liked it. It took me a little bit to get into it. I think, still a bit miffed about the new Roman Empire, but I gradually got into it and enjoyed it. And also enjoyed limited editions by Carole Stone. So this is a collection that is centered around the theme of coming to terms with the loss of your spouse, particularly after a long marriage, and sort of the lead up to that loss, the loss itself, coming to grips with it, family, that sort of thing. And I really enjoyed this collection as well. Now, over the course of the work week, except for yesterday, I read a lot of manga. I read 2 of the forthcoming volumes that I'd mentioned. The third is en route. I should get it tomorrow, but I didn't get it in time to do this reading. I had thought about setting these 3 aside to read together, but I decided to go ahead and read the first 2. So I read Four Nights of the Apocalypse, Volume 11 by Nakaba Suzuki. So Four Nights of the Apocalypse is the sequel series to The 7 Deadly Sins. The Four Nights of the Apocalypse are 4 young, superpowered teens. Well, they're 4 superpowered teens who are foretold to come together and bring about the downfall of a corrupted King Arthur and his version of Camelot. The main character is a young man named Percival, who has journeyed from his home to Lyonesse to sort of meet with King Melodius and Queen Elizabeth. On his journey, he has formed a group of friends, a platoon, featuring Donnie, Nescience, and Anne. So, with Volume 11, a new arc begins. So, the 4 Nights of the Apocalypse have sort of come together. And they are being sent out to try to find where Camelot is. Like, where the doorway that leads to Camelot's dimension is. So the group journey out, and then at a certain point they will separate. So Percival and his friends, along with fellow Knight of the Apocalypse Gawain, will explore a certain part of Britannia. Tristan and his group will explore another part, and Lancelot, who's the most capable of the four, will journey on its own. So the group comes to a walled city called Walnack, and there they get involved in a local festival. And while they're there, they are attacked by two holy knights in the service of Camelot, Macduff and Tiernick. So before they head out from Leonis, Lancelot meets with a young woman named Guinevere, who tells him she's going to be his lover when they're both older. However, Guinevere is kidnapped by Ironside, a knight in the service of King Arthur, for her prophetic abilities. And so a lot of this arc is basically Guinevere telling Arthur what's going to happen here as a test of her abilities, and also warning him that trying to change fate, or what her vision is, has dire consequences. So the group, there's basically 2 rooms available, and one of the group has to room with someone else. So the girls and the boys basically separate, with Tristan having to room with somebody not in their company, which I'm not entirely sure why. Because you would think, given who the other person is, that one of the girls would be doing that. But anyway, so Tristan goes missing, and the group goes in search of him. Macduff attacks the boys, and Tiernick attacks the girls and Jade. And that's how most of this volume is. And I really enjoyed it. It was quite fun. So let me show you some pictures here. There's that. Now I'm kind of going to try to go through this a bit quickly, go through my manga discussions a bit quicker than I normally do, since I've already taken up a bit extra time. So there's Guinevere giving the thumbs down to King Arthur. But I also really liked the a lot of the character work that went on in this volume. I especially like the work done with Nacians and Cheon, even though that was a bit hilarious. So yeah, it was really quite interesting. So yeah, so I had a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to getting volume 12. And I also read volume 27 of Eden Zero by Hiro Mashima. So Eden Zero is a science fantasy space opera about a young man named Shiki, who was raised by an android named Ziggy on a tourist planet. One day, a young woman named Rebecca and her exceed companion Happy come to the planet to film for their B-Cube channel, and the android seems to malfunction. Shiki rescues Rebecca and Happy, and they flee to the planet and become adventurers. Over the course of the series, they form a crew, and Shiki becomes renowned as one of the Oresienses Galactica. They're largely devoted to fighting the forces of Ziggy, Shiki's adoptive grandfather, who has seemingly come back from the dead as a corrupted, tyrannical android. Um, during the last arc, Ziggy was defeated and reveals that he'd been under the control of the AI for the other ship, the Eden's One, and that um, Ziggy was sent back in time to prevent Mother, the great cosmic goddess figure, from dying, and with her death leading to the extinction of humanity and eventually androids as well. So Shiki and his friends travel to Universe Zero, the only universe in which they could save Mother. So basically, the series sort of does a reboot back to the beginning. Although gradually the team gets their memories back and have access to their powers, although they're not fully trained to that level. So in this volume, Shiki and the crew that he's assembled have gone to the planet Gwlist to recruit Sister, and while they're there, Jin and Clean. And they also run into Homura. So Shiki and the crew pretty much decimate Drake and Joe's elite forces. And Shiki has a confrontation with Draken, in which Shiki re-emphasizes his desire from earlier in the series to become friends with Draken, and also eventually Prince Shura, or in this case Emperor Shura, who's taken over the Aoi cosmos from his adoptive father Nero. There's some back and forth, which is quite fun, and Shiki sort of parts on fairly good terms with Draken and what's left of his forces. So the bolstered crew then travel to Sunjul to try to help Homura regain her memories. So of everybody they've met so far, they've regained their memories when they've been together for a bit of time, but Homura isn't. And so they decide to go to Sunjul to try to jog her memories, either by really by confronting her mother, Madame Kurana, who was in a previous universe the tyrannical leader of Sunjul. In this reality, Madame Kurana is, in actual fact, a vigilante. She's a hero who only stayed on Sunjul because her husband forced her to remain, otherwise he would launch an attack on Sunjul. So meeting Kurenai and also meeting her believed to be deceased mentor Valkyrie jogs Homura's memories, and Homura basically is back to her normal self. They part on good terms with Madame Kurenai. Valkyrie joins the crew of the Eden Zero. So in this reality, the Demon Lord's Foresight Shining Stars are reassembled, and they head to the area cosmos to pick up the last of the crew, Laguna, who in this reality has taken over leadership of the resistance against the Empire. So they go to the planet Oasis, meet Laguna. He actually reveals that he'd already regained his memories a few days previously. And while they're talking, Shura comes. But it's revealed that Shura isn't looking for a fight, or at least not with Oasis or even with Shiki. But he's looking to join forces so that they can take out one of the Oresienses Galactica in this reality. So while the Eden's One couldn't take over Ziggy, it built a body of its own and has largely assembled a more powerful fighting force. Not only the four Dark Stars, but also the Oresienses Galactica in this reality are all subordinate to the Eden's One. And so that's where this leads. So this was really fun. I really quite enjoyed it. So let's see here. There's that. I mean, just and then there's the more heroic Madame Kurenai with Homura seeing her. And then there's and there's that. It's amazing to see. And then Homura when she gets her memories back and her skills. And then there's a look at the big bad. And then there's Laguna. I want to get one look at the sure of this reality. Oh yeah. There's Master Xenolith, who appears to be one of the Oresian Saints Galactica. And then there's Shura. And it's, I mean, I really like the changes to Universe Zero. Just that. I had a blast. Looking forward to volume 28 in April. So, I also spent part of the work week reading first volumes. Over the last few months, I have assembled quite the collection of number one volumes, with an idea of deciding if there are any that I would like to follow up with and continue to collect over time. And I basically want to collect all of them. So it was very, very good. I really enjoyed them all. So first up is a Black Clover by Yuki Tabata. So this is a fantasy series about a young man named Asta who desires to become the Wizard King. Unfortunately, he has no magic, but that allows him to take possession of the Black Grimoire, which basically gives him a magical sword that basically is able to defeat magic. It's like an anti-magic sword. So Asta and his friend Yuno, who is a prodigy, they go to a selection exam for the Magic Knights of the Clover Kingdom. And Asta is selected for the Black Bulls force, which are a wild and crazy group of misfits. And it is glorious. I absolutely, really enjoyed this. I have the second volume, and I'm got a few more volumes on the way. There's that. Okay, I'm going to have to rush it some. So yeah, but definitely I really enjoyed this. I also really enjoyed Delicious in Dungeon Volume 1 by Ryoko Kui. So this is a series in which adventurers explore dungeons. Unfortunately for Leos and his friends, they are killed and all of their money is left behind in the dungeon. So, in order to rescue his sister, he and the remaining members of his band have to decide that they will, instead of spending money on provisions, they will just use what's in the dungeon as food. They meet up with a weird dwarf named, I'm blanking on his name right now, but he basically teaches them how to cook these various denizens of the dungeon. And so each chapter is about eating different things. And it is a blast. Let me see here. So it was fun. Let me show you a bit of a picture from here. I also really enjoyed Choujin X Volume 1 by Sui Ishida. So this is an alternate history in which some humans develop superpowers, and the world, as a consequence, has fallen apart. In 1998, high school students Tokyo and Azuma are acting as vigilantes when a person who has access to a chemical that can make people into Chuchin sort of forces them to take it, and Tokyo basically becomes a vulture human hybrid, and he's pursued by the person who supplied the drug. I really enjoyed it. It was quite interesting. Um, Dr. Stone by Riichiro, Inagaki, and Boichi is also fantastic. This is a post-apocalyptic series in which some unknown force petrifies humanity for nearly 4,000 years. Eventually, some humans begin to break free of the petrification and try to restart society, led by Sinku, a brilliant high school student. And I really thought it was wonderful. Twin Star Exorcists by Yoshiaki Sukeno was also fantastic. This is a series set in contemporary Japan about exorcists who fight transdimensional beings called Kigare. It's foretold that the ultimate exorcist will be able to defeat these creatures, but that exorcist has to be born. And the way it is by the marriage of the Twin Star Exorcists, the two strongest exorcists of Japan, who just so happen to be Rokuro and Benyo. And the problem is they don't like each other. But it was really fun. I thought it kind of started a bit slow, but I mean, particularly since Rokuro has no interest in continuing being an exorcist. But hopefully, this first volume got him out of that, because he's actually a really awesome exorcist when he puts his mind to it. Yeah. I enjoyed it. And finally, Dandadan Volume 1 by Yukinobu Tatsu. So this is a series about two high school students Momo and Ken. Momo believes in spirits. Ken believes in aliens. Neither believes that the other exists, so they make a dare. Momo will go to a location with significant UFO activity, and Ken would go to a haunted location. And unfortunately for both of them, they find out that the other is right, that aliens and ghosts exist. And they both end up having to fight it out with some aliens and Turbo Granny, ghost haunting a tunnel. And they sort of become superheroes in a way, as Momo kind of like comes into her psychic abilities, and Ken is kind of sort of possessed by Turbo Granny at the cost of a certain part of his anatomy. And I just really enjoyed it. So yeah, I really had a blast. So yeah, so this was fun. So I absolutely want to collect all of these. So look forward to copious amounts of book calls with them in the near future. Now I need to hurry this up because I'm going on a little too long. So for today, I think I'm going to read Metabolics by Jessica E. Johnson. This is a slim volume of poetry. Over the weekend, I think I'm going to spend the first part of Saturday and Sunday reading some American drama. I developed a bit of a desire for 20th century American drama, but I haven't actually gotten around to reading any of it. So I'm thinking of reading something by William Ng and probably Our Town by Thornton Wilder, for sure. And then maybe read some manga afterwards because I have some more manga to read. Namely, I should be getting My Hero Academia 37 in tomorrow. So there's that, since I don't have it in yet. I'm also wanting to read probably Blue Exorcist Volume 1 by Kazue Kato and Soul Eater Volume 1 by Asushi Okubo. I've experienced both of these before. I've read this first volume about 10 years ago, and I've read some of Soul Eater, but I don't remember exactly how much. And I will also probably read Volume 2 of Black Clover. And I'm thinking about, over the course of the work week, finishing off Great Priest Imhotep by Makoto Morishita. I read the first four volumes about a week ago and really enjoyed it, and I've gone ahead and picked up the rest of the series. So I will be able to finish it off hopefully this work week, depending on if they get to me in time. And so this is about the ancient Egyptian priest Imhotep sort of coming to Japan 5,000 years after his supposed, like the time period that he lived in, to help fight the Magi, basically demons who are impersonating Egyptian gods. And I'm also thinking maybe about, at some point, Fullmetal Alchemist by Hiro Nakaba, Magic Elemental Magic by Shinobu Otaka, and a few volumes of Naruto by Masashi Kishimoto. So I don't really know what I want to do. So some of that I'll kind of like with next weekly reads, I'll report back on how things turned out. But anyway, BookTube, this video is going on a way longer than I anticipated, so I'm going to go ahead and sign off for now. And I'll be back next week with probably I want to make a video in which I like look into sort of what I call taste changes. And I think there's another video I wanted to make that. Oh yeah, and on favorites. So hopefully I'll be able to make those. But anyway, BookTube, and I'll see you next week. Thank you. Have a great afternoon and stay safe.